Hi everybody, it's your boy Joe, the Wealth Architect, and I amassed 6 figures in wealth in a matter of 6-7 years after doing 25 years in prison. I'm going to tell you how I did it, how you can do it, and believe it or not, it was easier than you might imagine. So the first thing is I had a wealth mindset, right? As I've mentioned in all of my videos, it's not about the money, it's about the mindset, right? You can have all the money in the world or little money, right? As little money in the world. The thing that distinguishes a person who has wealth or will acquire wealth is having a wealth mindset, having the right mindset, right? So the first thing was adopting a wealth mindset. And that started while I was incarcerated many years ago. As a young man, I was 24 years old when I first started reading about personal finance and really took to it. And the key for me was not going back to prison, was not committing crimes, was not focused on getting money by any means necessary. And also a key was thinking long term. So the problem for many of us is that we think short term, right? So we want instant gratification. We want to save or put aside a little bit of money and then come out on the other end a millionaire in a matter of a year or two, right? It's just not realistic. So the first thing was thinking long term. I knew that if I wanted to have a different lifestyle, if I wanted to have a lifestyle that didn't involve incarceration, that I had to think differently. I had to think differently about myself, but also had to think differently about money, right? The thing that led me to my incarceration. And so the thing was, I really had to think about what I wanted my life to look like, right? In terms of lifestyle, in terms of how I wanted to live out my values, right? Of family, of contribution to society, and things like that. And so the first thing was, again, having a wealth mindset, and one that was long-term focused. I can't emphasize that enough. This stuff takes time, right, to build wealth. Many of us, or most of us, do not come from money. And so to expect to accumulate lots of money or wealth in a very short period of time legally is not realistic, right? Now, it is possible, right? Like I said, because I've amassed 6 figures, some people have amassed more, especially if you own your own business, and I'm on my way. But the point is that for the most part, it takes time, right? And so it required me to be disciplined, right? To be disciplined and to think long term. The other thing was that I had to think about the fact that having spent 25 years in prison, right? So I went in 21, came out, or was released at 46, right? I'm now 55. And so the reality was I didn't have a retirement plan, right? I didn't have any 401k, didn't have an IRA, didn't have any type of investments while in prison. Can't expect much from Social Security, right? So all those things were out the window. And that reality made me more focused, more disciplined, more long-term focused than I probably would have been otherwise, to be honest, right? Otherwise, had I not had that carceral experience, right? And I'm not happy about that, but had I not had that, I'm pretty sure I probably would have been thinking short term, right? Instant gratification, and not thinking about retirement per se. But coming home at 46, it made me think about those things in a very focused way. So it's a long way of saying the first thing or the first key that helped me to amass six figures in investment wealth is having and adopting a wealth mindset, right? So if you think that you can continue to have a poor mindset, one that is based on instant gratification, that's based on doing whatever you want, whenever you want, right? So no discipline, just going with your emotions or how you feel on any given day, then you are sadly mistaken, right? You will not accumulate wealth that way, all right? I can assure you that, right? Countless people know this to be true. Another part was when I did get out in 2016, I had my first job, right? I had that for about a year before I went to school, before I decided to go back to school and to finish up, or at least take more classes towards my degree, right? So, and during that time, during the first year or two of being home, I just stacked, right? I saved, right? I saved. So obviously I had expenses. I'm a married man. So I obviously contributed to the household, to my wife, and then I stacked. I saved. I didn't invest outright, right? I didn't invest because I wanted to make sure that I had a nice cushion. So I saved about 20 racks, about $20,000 in a matter of about a year and a half, 2 years. I was not playing. I saved. And I didn't feel like I was sacrificing. And I think that's key because too many of us think that in order to save or invest, or we hear the words budgeting means that we have to, obviously there are sacrifices, but it doesn't mean that you can't have a comfortable lifestyle. I was very comfortable, right? I didn't feel like I needed things, especially like clothes or material things, right? As I, accumulated a few things, bought, my suits, my, shorts, sneakers, in other words, I had most of the things that I needed. So every now and then I would treat myself to something, but I was not acquisitive, not just acquiring things, right? Those are the old days. This was a new Joe, right? This is a Joe that was focused on wealth building, right? Not accumulating things and trying to impress people. So again, the thing was, I had to really think about, let me just get my little notes here because I'm walking. So with my second job, right, that I've had for 7 years, I continued. Obviously, this is the way I think, so I continued with a growth mindset, a wealth mindset. And luckily, even when I first started, I started part-time, but they offered a 401k, right? An employee-sponsored retirement savings account. They offered a 401k even for part-time employees. That's a big deal because that's very rare. First of all, not every company offers a 401k plan, right? Not these days, right? But in my case, or in this case, not only did they offer it, but they offered it to part-time employees. So I didn't have to be a full-time employee. That was a game changer. Right? And so I started off with 10%, right? Even though I didn't make much, I only worked about 22 hours, 20 or 22 hours a week. Didn't make a lot of money, but I didn't spend a lot, didn't have a lot of expenses. And so I ended up, like I said, contributing 10% of my gross pay to my 401k. And let me just mention that there are two types of 401k. There's the traditional 401k, and then there's a Roth 401k. The main difference is that with a traditional 401k, right, you invest money that is you contribute tax-free, right? Contribute tax-free. So meaning that your money is not taxed up front. So whatever amount you allocate or set aside to go into your traditional 401k, it is not taxed up front. However, at the age of 59 and a half, assuming you keep the money in there, you don't take it out before then, because there's taxes and penalties if you do, then you will be taxed on the back end, right? So whatever your income is at that age, 59, 60, 65, you'll be taxed at that rate. So because I was thinking long term, and I think long term, I decided to get a Roth 401k. With a Roth 401k, you're taxed, or I was taxed, up front. So the amount that I contributed was taxed up front, every paycheck, every 2 weeks. Now what that means though, is that on the back end, when I'm 59 and a half, another 4 years, then all of my earnings and contributions will be tax-free. So I will be a millionaire, and I'm declaring that, will be a multimillionaire, and some of that money will come from my investments in my Roth 401k, and it will not be taxed on the back end because it was taxed on the front end, right? So the reason why I chose that, and you may consider getting a Roth 401k, it depends on your situation, is that I anticipate having more income when I'm, let's say, 60, right? And so I do not want to be taxed when I'm 60, right? Spend enough time in prison, right? Been taxed in terms of my time and my earning potential, meaning I was not able to make money. So now I want my money to work for me. And so again, the Roth 401k, with that, you get taxed up front, but not on the back end. So you have to decide based on whether or not you believe you will make more or less money when you are in your 60s, let's say, right? And so anyway, so that's what I did. So that was another key to my building 6 figures in wealth. Another one is that I diversify my investments. What does that mean? I spread my risk. So even though in my Roth 401k, I invested in a mutual fund, right, which is a basket of stocks in my case, even though I invested in it, and it was an S&P 500 fund, which means I am invested in the top 500 companies in America, right? So it's relatively safe, right? Over the last 100 years, S&P 500 funds, no matter who who your brokerage is, mine happens to be Fidelity, but they've averaged about 10% a year, right? So some years, for example, I remember in I think in 21, it went down because of the pandemic, so everybody lost some. But then the next year it rebounded, and I think I earned about 30%, 30% in 1 year, right? And this is money that was working for me. I had a job, and but I didn't have to work for the money once it was invested. So that's the power and the key to investing. But so anyway, but I diversify. So even though at the time my investments was mostly in the 401k, the Roth 401k, in an S&P 500 company, I also invested in Roth IRA. So like a 401k, the IRAs individual retirement accounts has two versions, a traditional version and a Roth version. And like a 401k, the traditional version, you are not taxed up front, but are taxed later, right, on the back end. And like a Roth 401k, with a Roth IRA, you are taxed up front and then not taxed on the back end. So for the same reasons that I invested in a Roth 401k, I invested in a Roth IRA. Got it? Okay. So now I did that specifically because with most 401ks, traditional or Roth, you are limited in terms of what types of investments your money can go towards. And most of the time it is index funds or mutual funds. Nothing wrong with those, right? But I wanted to, because of my comfort or comfortability with investing in the market just in general, I wanted to invest in individual stocks like Apple, like Google, like Netflix, right? So I couldn't do that with the Roth 401k, but I was able to do that and am doing that with the Roth IRA. So that's why I opened a third account. And then I eventually, and this is all going towards diversification, then I eventually opened a third account, right? So I had the Roth 401k at work, a Roth IRA, which was my own separate brokerage account with Fidelity, and then I opened a third brokerage account also with Fidelity to invest even more. Now, the reason why I did that is not, it's not that the more accounts you have, the more money you make. That's not the way it works. The reason why I did that is because with IRAs, there is a cap each year in terms of how much you can invest. And I believe it's about $7,000 for people under 50 and under, under 50. And if you're 50 and older, then you can invest, I believe it's $7,500 or $8,000. I can't remember off the top of my head, right? So because I reached that amount back then, and this is each year, right? So each year you can invest that amount. Because I reached that amount, I still had money that I wanted to invest in individual stocks, I opened a third brokerage account. And so I had three baskets of money working for me. 3 baskets gave me some diversification, right? I spread my risk. Instead of putting all of my investments in one basket, I spread them into 3. And that is a key part of how I amass 6 figures in investment wealth. Next, I leverage automation, right? What do I mean by that? The key, or a key, to investing is to put your money on autopilot. It's to put your money on autopilot. What do I mean by that? So it's easy with a 401k, with my employment-sponsored retirement savings account, right? The 401k. It was easy because I didn't have to do anything. In other words, once on the back end of the platform that we use to have money allocated to our investments, I started off with 10%, as I mentioned. And then each time, and this is critical, I forgot to mention this earlier, each time I got a raise, each time I got a bonus, instead of partying like it was 1999, like a lot of people do, right? We go celebrate, we go spending on a spending spree. Again, I was thinking long term, I was disciplined, and I would increase the amount that was automatically put into or contributed to my 401k. So I went from 10% to, like, I can't remember the exact numbers, but maybe 12% to 15%, and then ultimately, Now, I'm not saying you want to do this, right? Depends on your situation. But then ultimately went to 19%. 19%. So almost one fifth of my gross pay, every paycheck, twice a month, went to my 401k, right? So you can see how lots and lots of money was being put to work on my behalf. So I was making money while I slept, right? And it was on autopilot, right? It's on autopilot because I didn't have to think about it. So from my gross pay, right off the top, government got their money, right? So you got state, federal, local taxes, right off the top, nothing we can do about that, right? Then the next big chunk of money that came from my account was my 401k, contributions to my 401k, right? So it was a 20%. So 20%, so just do the math real quick. About over the years, anywhere between 20 and 24, 25% of my money went to taxes, which is crazy, right? Then another 20% went to or 19% to be precise, went to my 401k, right? So already we had about 45%. And then obviously, there's healthcare and other benefits. So at the end, I was living off approximately half of my gross pay. And I did that for years, about half, right? And I didn't feel like I was struggling or sacrificing or anything like that because, again, I didn't need much. I don't need much in terms of material things. I was able to, live comfortably and take care of what needed to be taken care of. And most importantly, I was thinking long term, right? So that's the key thing, thinking long term. And so that's how I was able to also able to contribute or to accumulate 6 figures in investment wealth. And finally, so automation, let me just back up one thing. Now, what I didn't do as much, right, full transparency, is I did not automate my contributions to my Roth IRA my Roth IRA and my third brokerage account. I did not automate those. And I should have. Still, obviously it's not too late, but I should have because I would have been able to amass more. Even if I only allocated $50 a month. $50 a month. You can have $50 a month automatically go from your checking account to a brokerage account, right? Automatically, right? You just the accounts are connected. Your bank checking account is connected to the brokerage account, and you determine how much you want to contribute and when, right? What day, right? You can say the 1st of the month, the 15th of the month, and then you don't have to think about it. You don't have to try to remember, oh man, I forgot to invest. I'll do it next time, right? Next time never comes, right? So you can automate. So that's something I did not do, right? I actually intend to begin doing. I think I got comfortable with my Roth 401k because it was on autopilot and is, on autopilot. So yeah, but anyway, but that's key, the automation. And then finally, I took advantage of the power of compound interest, right? Of money, earning money or working for you, right? When you invest, or I invest, it's very different than savings, right? So whether you save $1,000, $2,000, $10,000, doesn't matter. In a traditional bank account, you're gonna earn pennies on the dollar. Even with a high yield savings account, you may get, you'll get a couple more percentage points, but it's still difficult to keep up with inflation or the rising cost of prices. And so your money needs to work harder for you. And I use, or anyone who invests, uses the power of compound interest, of your earnings making earnings, right? Or accumulating further earnings, right? So I use that power over time. When I say I use it, I didn't have to do anything. I just have to be invested. That's what I mean by that. by automatically investing in a 401k and hopefully in other accounts, meaning automatically and consistently doing it, then over time, the money just compounds, right? It compounds. And then before you know it, you double your money. And then you double it again, and you double it again. And I don't mean like on a yearly basis, but over time. The power of compound interest is with time. The power with investing in general is letting the money work for you over time. So I'm going to give you a recap. And you want to learn more about all of this and more, then click the link below to get a free chapter of my book, The New SSI Method, where I get into some of these investment principles and the mindset that is needed in order to accumulate wealth. Remember, I started off with mindset, right? It's not just like, you take these practical steps and then next thing you know, you wake up and you're a millionaire. It's not the way it works, right? You have to think like a millionaire. Millionaires don't just spend crazy, right? They don't think short term. They think long term, right? They think about how their money can work for them. They think about longevity. They think about passing on wealth, things like that. So it is a mindset shift that's at the heart of accumulating wealth, right? And like I said, my money is working for me even when I'm asleep, right? You can be, it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter how many years in prison or any of those things. None of those things matter when you put your money to work for you. That's the beauty of it, right? Whereas with a job, as many of us know, with a felony conviction, this discrimination is very real. And so, just give me a second. Discrimination is very real. When it comes to investing in the stock market, there's no discrimination, right? Money is money. That's the beauty. So you're on even playing field with anyone else and everyone else who is investing, right? So that's the beauty of it. So I'm gonna go over these 5 things again really quickly. But before I do, I want to mention, like I said, you can purchase also a copy of the entire book, The SSI Method, by clicking the link below. But you could also get a free copy of Chapter 1, right, by clicking the link below. I want you all to really take this thing seriously and know that if I, after spending 25 years in prison, can amass 6 figures in investment wealth in a matter of 6-7 years, that you can too. And I'm on my way to getting 7 figures, right? Just from investing, right? We're not even talking business, right? Just give me 1 second here. Get my phone. I know I should get my, anyway, keep that in mind, right? That you can do this, right? And as you can see, it didn't take rocket science. I didn't do anything special. I just knew what to do. I knew what to do because I've been, studying and been a student of personal finance for the past 30 years. So I knew about all the stuff, and then I just actually put it into practice, right? So let's go over the 5 things again really quickly, then we'll wrap up. All right, the first one is adopt a wealth mindset, right? So you have to have a mindset that is focused on long-term wealth accumulation, that requires you to be disciplined, that requires you to think, like I said, long-term, not short-term, that is focused on delayed gratification instead of instant gratification. That's step number 1. Step number 2, if your company has a 401k, I talk to my sister about this a lot, because a lot of people either don't know that their company, the company you work for, has a 401k, and if they do, they invest the minimum, right? Because the company often, and this is a big one, a lot of companies will match up until a point. They will match what you contribute. That's free money, right? In the same way that you can earn money on your credit cards, you can earn a lot more with company matching for your 401k. And so you should take full advantage of investing in a 401k if your company has full advantage, right? As much money as you possibly can. Seriously, as much money as you possibly can, right? Again, you can determine how much is contributed. And so you can invest, you can change the amount. So you can, let's say you started with 10%, you can go in either direction. So it doesn't have to be just going up. In other words, if your circumstances change and you need to change it to 9% or 8%, you can do that too, right? So anyway, but the key thing is to invest in your retirement plan, right? Can't emphasize that enough. If your job does not have one, all right, then you simply set up, but you work, right? You simply set up an IRA, an individual retirement account. In another video, I'll explain how to do just that, but you can do it. If your company does not have it, or even if it does, then you should invest in the 401k. And if you feel comfortable, you can also invest in IRA, right? It's up to you. But if they don't have it, if they don't have a 401k, you should definitely begin right now investing in an IRA if they don't have a 401k. The next step is diversify, right? So I just said that. If they do have a 401k, then you can just stick with that. If that's, where you're at in terms of your comfort zone, right? If you don't want to invest in individual stocks, or you just don't want to go outside your 401k, that's cool. Now, let me just say this too. With the IRA, it's not just individual stocks. So they have mutual funds, index funds. They have the same funds that your Roth 401k plan will have, but so much more. So they will have hundreds, right? So keep that in mind, right? It gives you more options. That's what I like about it. It gives you more options. So that's another thing. Fourth is to automate, right? Put this stuff on autopilot so you don't have to think about it. You don't have to remember to invest, right? How you say, set it and forget it. That's the term they use. So you want to set it and forget it. And then finally, you want to simply just use the power of compound interest, right? Your money, earning money, or working for you, you want to use the power of that to your advantage. So those are the 5 key things. Again, you can learn more about this by ordering my book, The SSI Method, on Amazon, or you can get a free copy of Chapter 1 by simply clicking the link below. This is your boy Joe, the Wealth Architect. Just wanted to break down how I was able to amass, in a matter of a few years, 6 figures in investment income, and how you can too. Let's get this money.